My wife had just driven off for her sister's wedding when my 6-year-old daughter slipped into my bed and whispered, "Daddy, we have to go now." I asked, "Why, sweetheart?" She said, "Mommy changed the locks yesterday. She said we'd be gone by morning." I checked the doors. All sealed shut. Then I smelled gas and the doorbell rang. What if the person you vowed to spend your life with, the mother of your children, orchestrated your murder? How do you come back from a betrayal so absolute, so chillingly calculated, that it strips away everything you thought you knew about love and family? This isn't just a story. It's a testament to the fact that some lines, once crossed, leave an indelible mark, and some debts are paid in a currency far more valuable than money. The rain lashed against the 47th floor windows of my office, blurring the Boston skyline into an impressionistic smear. It was the kind of night that usually meant deep focus, the city's chaos muted by the storm, but a cold unease had already settled in my gut. My firm, Miller Security Solutions, was built on unwavering loyalty and a promise of devastating retribution for betrayal. Little did I know, both principals were about to be tested in the most brutal way imaginable. "Mr. Miller, it's Detective Elena Rodriguez. There's been an incident at your children's school." The words, delivered over my private line, the one only 3 people knew, hit me like a physical blow. 20 minutes later, the polished halls of Beacon Academy felt charged with unspoken tension. Principal Wallace, a man usually radiating pompous calm, wrung his hands, his face a mask of nervous apologies. "Where's my daughter?" My voice was a low growl, an ice-cold warning. He led me to a small room, and there she was, my 6-year-old Chloe, strawberry blonde hair matted with dried blood, sitting on an examination table, eyes wide but unflinching. Across from her, a boy with a broken arm sobbed dramatically as his mother fussed over him. The other boy called Chloe names about her mother. Principal Wallace stammered. Things got physical. "Mrs. Henderson claims Chloe started it." My gaze, sharp and unwavering, cut through his explanation. "Tell Detective Rodriguez I want the security footage," I said, my eyes never leaving Chloe's. What did he say? Her green eyes met mine, a mirror of my own steel. He said mommy was a bad word, that she sleeps with lots of men. Her small fists clenched, her voice steady. I told him to shut up. He pushed me. I pushed back. He cried and lied. A surge of fierce pride filled my chest. My daughter had my fire, my unyielding spirit. "You did right," I told her, placing a hand on her shoulder. Mrs. Henderson, face flushed with indignation, stepped forward. "How dare you encourage this behavior? Your daughter broke my Kevin's arm." My eyes locked onto hers, and she involuntarily recoiled. "Your son will learn today that words have consequences. Consider his arm an inexpensive lesson." That evening, the brownstone on Beacon Hill stood like a fortress, 3 stories of brick and iron, wired with every security system I'd ever designed. But as I stepped inside, the classical music drifting from the drawing room felt jarringly out of place. Sarah, my wife of 12 years, sat with a glass of Pinot Grigio, her auburn hair cascading over the silk of her dress. "How's Chloe?" she asked, not even turning. "She'll be fine." Handled herself like a Miller. Sarah's lips tightened, almost imperceptibly. "I heard about the incident." "Really, Ethan? Couldn't you have been more diplomatic with Mrs. Henderson? Her husband sits on the school board." My hand clenched around the scotch glass I'd just poured. "I don't care if her husband sits on the throne of England. No one speaks about my family that way." "Your family," Sarah finally turned, her blue eyes colder than any winter sky. "Sometimes I wonder if you remember I'm part of it, too." I studied her, a stranger in my own home. We'd met when she was a struggling art curator, and I was just building Miller Security. I'd been drawn to her sophistication, her social grace, everything I lacked from my rough South Boston upbringing. Now, 12 years and 2 children later, I wondered if I'd mistaken calculation for charm. "I almost forgot," Sarah said, standing abruptly. "My sister Jessica's wedding is next weekend. The family cottage in the Berkshires." I nodded absently. Jessica Coleman, Sarah's younger sister, was marrying some investment banker I'd never met. The Colemans had old money, the kind that whispered rather than shouted, and they'd never quite approved of Sarah marrying a security contractor from the wrong side of the tracks. "Will you be able to get away from work?" she asked, a hint of accusation in her tone. "I'll try." The next week was a blur of meetings, contracts, and an overwhelming sense of unease. Miller Security had just landed a major account protecting the wealthy Admi family, who lived in fear of kidnapping. I threw myself into the work, barely noticing Sarah's increased absences, her sudden interest in her appearance, or the new dress she wore, a deep green silk I didn't recognize. On Friday evening, I found her packing an overnight bag in the master bedroom. "You're leaving already?" I asked, checking my watch. "I thought the ceremony wasn't until tomorrow afternoon. Jessica needs help with last-minute preparations. I'll take Chloe with me. You can follow tomorrow morning with Noah." She zipped her bag with unnecessary force. "Assuming you can tear yourself away from work." I studied her reflection in the mirror. Something felt off, the timing, her attitude, the way she avoided eye contact. But I pushed the feeling aside. Paranoia was an occupational hazard in my line of work. "Safe travels," I said, a hollow echo in the empty house. After Sarah and Chloe departed, I spent the evening reviewing security footage. Around midnight, I headed to bed, stopping to check on Noah. He was 12, deeply engrossed in a comic book. "Lights out in 30, champ." "Dad." He looked up, his brow furrowed. "Is Mom acting weird to you?" I paused. "How do you mean?" "I don't know. Different. Like she's hiding something." From the mouths of babes, I thought. Adults are complicated sometimes. Don't worry about it. I ruffled his hair and retired to my empty bedroom, though sleep eluded me. Hours passed, my mind racing, before exhaustion finally claimed me. Chapter 2. The warning. I woke to a small weight beside me. "Chloe." The digital clock glowed 2:14 a.m. "Daddy," she whispered, her small body trembling. "We need to leave now." I was instantly alert, adrenaline flooding my system. "What's going on, sweetheart?" Tears streamed down her face. "Mommy changed the locks yesterday. She said we'd be orphans by morning." Ice flooded my veins, a cold terror I hadn't felt since my days on the streets. "Chloe, what exactly did Mommy say?" Her voice broke. She was on the phone in her bathroom. I heard her say, "By morning they'll all be gone." And she said to make sure the gas was on high and all the doors were locked. My training kicked in. I swung out of bed, moving to the door. The handle wouldn't turn. I tried the bedroom windows, sealed shut from the outside. The master suite, my design safe room, had become our prison. "Stay calm, baby," I told Chloe, though my own heart hammered against my ribs. A faint, sickening smell of gas reached my nostrils. My phone lay on the nightstand. I dialed 911, but the call wouldn't connect. Signal jammer, I realized. Sarah had been thorough. "Think, Ethan, think." I moved to my dresser, retrieving the emergency toolkit hidden in a false bottom. Lock picks, glass cutter, portable signal booster. The tools of my trade. As I worked on the door's locking mechanism, Chloe huddled on the bed, clutching her stuffed rabbit. "Daddy, I'm scared." "I know, sweetheart, but we're going to be okay." The lock clicked open. I eased the door wide, listening. The house was silent, save for the distant, insidious hiss of gas. I crept to Noah's room. His door was locked from the outside. A safety feature I'd installed myself, now turned against me. I picked it quickly and found my son sleeping soundly. "Noah." I shook him awake. Emergency drill. Move. Years of training paid off as he immediately rose, alert and ready. I herded both children to the main staircase, but found it blocked by a security gate, another of my own installations. Then the doorbell rang. I froze. At 2:30 a.m., there was only one reason for a visitor. I looked at my children. "Stay behind me." Moving to the front door's security panel, I activated the exterior camera. Two men in dark clothing stood on my porch, their faces obscured. Through enhanced audio, I heard one speak into a radio. "Target should be neutralized." Entering now for confirmation. Understanding clicked into place, a cold, hard certainty. Sarah wasn't at her sister's wedding. This was an elaborate murder plot, and these men were here to ensure the job was done. My mind raced. The house's security system was designed to keep people out, not in. Sarah must have had help. Someone who knew the system, knew my routines, knew my weaknesses. "Daddy," Chloe whispered, her voice barely audible. "What do we do?" I smiled, a chilling, humorless curve of my lips. "We survive, and then we make them pay." I led my children to the kitchen, to the secondary exit I'd installed, a tunnel leading to the wine cellar of the neighboring abandoned building. It had been my insurance policy against exactly this kind of scenario. As we crawled through the passage, explosions rocked the house behind us. The men had triggered the gas. I shielded my children with my body, feeling the heat of the blast even through the earth. We emerged in the dusty wine cellar, coughing and covered in soot. I used my backup phone to call for help, then held my children close. "Mom tried to kill us," Noah said, his voice hollow with shock, a child suddenly stripped of innocence. "Yes," I confirmed, but she failed. And that was her first mistake. Chapter 3. The dead man walks. The Miller brownstone burned through the night, a beacon of destruction. Fire trucks and police cars lit up Beacon Hill with their strobes. I watched from across the street, my children wrapped in blankets provided by EMTs, their faces pale and streaked with ash. To the world, the Miller family had perished in a tragic accident. But I had other plans. Detective Elena Rodriguez, the same one who'd called about Chloe's school incident, approached me, genuine concern etched on her face. "Mr. Miller, I can't tell you how sorry I am. We thought the 911 call came from your security system about a gas leak. We weren't in time." "You received a 911 call?" I asked carefully, my mind already working through the implications. "Automated. Your system sent an alert about a gas leak at 2:45 a.m. Perfect. Someone had programmed my own system to create an alibi." I filed this information away. "Detective, I need a favor," I said quietly, my voice a dangerous whisper. "I need the world to think we died in that fire." Rodriguez's eyes widened. "Sir, think about it. Someone tried to murder my entire family tonight. Someone with inside knowledge of my security systems. Until I know who, my children aren't safe." The detective studied my face, then nodded. "Give me an hour." By dawn, the story was set. The Miller family, casualties of a tragic gas leak and subsequent explosion. Bodies too badly burned for identification. A tragedy that would rock Boston's elite and the security industry. I took my children to a safe house, an apartment I'd maintained under an alias for exactly this purpose. As Noah and Chloe slept, exhausted from their ordeal, I began working my contacts. My first call was to Marcus Thorne, my head of operations, and one of the few people I trusted completely. "Boss, thank God you're alive," Marcus said, his voice thick with emotion. "The news, we thought. Let the world keep thinking it. Someone tried to erase us. Marcus, I need you to find out who. Where do I start?" "Sarah. Her phone records, banking movements. And find out about the sister's wedding, the Coleman family cottage." On it. My second call went to Tony Fingers Gallo, an old friend from my younger days, now a private investigator with questionable ethics, but absolute loyalty to me. "Tony, I need you to tail someone," I said. "Sarah Miller. She thinks she's a widow." Tony's gravelly laugh came through the phone. "Funny thing about widows, Ethan. They tend to show their true colors pretty quick." Over the next 3 days, information trickled in, each piece a shard of broken trust. Sarah had indeed gone to the Coleman cottage, but there was no wedding. Instead, she'd met with Adrian Finch, a young architect I'd never heard of. Tony's surveillance photos showed them embracing passionately, Sarah wearing black mourning clothes. The bank records revealed something far more sinister. Sarah had been siphoning money from our accounts for months, transferring it to an offshore account. It wasn't just embezzlement. It was the oldest motive in the world: greed and a new lover. My final piece of intelligence came from my security firm's IT department. Someone had hacked the Miller Mansion security system remotely. Not just anyone, but someone with administrative access. Only 5 people had those credentials: myself, Marcus, and 3 trusted engineers. I eliminated Marcus immediately. That left 3 possibilities. I had Brenda Rodriguez, my best interrogator, invite each engineer for a routine security review. Within hours, she confirmed what I suspected. Liam Kelly, the youngest engineer, had been compromised. He cracked like an egg, Brenda reported. Some woman seduced him at a tech conference, pretended to be interested in his work, got him drunk, drugged, and took pictures for blackmail. Description: red hair, mid-30s, professional-looking. Sarah's sister, Jessica. The entire picture crystallized. This wasn't just about murder. It was about taking everything. The house, the children, the business, the fortune. Sarah and her lover, with the Coleman family's complicity, had planned to eliminate me and take it all. But they'd made one critical error. They'd left Chloe alive to warn me. I gathered my children in the safe house, living room. Noah and Chloe looked at me with tired eyes, asking questions I needed to answer. Mom tried to kill us, Noah stated flatly. Why? I sat facing them, speaking with absolute honesty. Because she wanted everything I've built, and she wanted to be with another man. She chose greed and betrayal over family. What happens now? Chloe asked, her small voice firm. I smiled, the cold, hard smile of a man reborn from the ashes. Now the dead man walks. Chapter 4. The Hunter's Trail. The funeral was everything Sarah could have hoped for. Boston's elite turned out to mourn the tragic loss of the Miller family. Sarah played her part perfectly, the grieving widow in designer black, accepting condolences with quiet dignity. From a surveillance van half a block away, I watched with cold satisfaction. She'd chosen the most expensive caskets, wept convincingly as they were lowered into the ground, and delivered a eulogy that would have moved anyone who didn't know the truth. She's good, Tony Gallo commented, adjusting the camera angle. Almost had me believing her. My jaw tightened. Beside Sarah stood Adrian Finch, pretending to be a family friend offering support. He placed a hand on her shoulder with proprietary familiarity, a gesture that sent a ripple of pure fury through me. Tony, I want to know everything about him. Over the next 2 weeks, I built my case like a master architect. Adrian Finch, it turned out, was more than just a pretty face with an architecture degree from Yale. He had a history, expensive tastes, failed businesses, and a pattern of targeting wealthy older women. Through Tony's investigation, I learned that Adrian had met Sarah at a charity gala 6 months ago. Their affair had started immediately, passionate and reckless. Adrian had convinced Sarah that I was holding her back, that with my death, she could truly live. The insurance payout alone was $20 million. But there was an unexpected twist. The deeper I dug, the more connections I found between Adrian and the Colemans. Jessica Coleman wasn't just Sarah's sister, she was Adrian's ex-girlfriend from college. The entire family had been in on the plot. They're all dirty, Marcus Thorne reported during a secure call. Jessica married into the Coleman money, but she squandered it. They were facing bankruptcy. This was supposed to save them. My children adjusted to their new reality with remarkable resilience. I'd enrolled them in a small private school under assumed names, telling them this was temporary. They understood in their own way that their father was hunting. One evening, Chloe climbed into my lap as I worked at my computer. Daddy, when we catch the bad people, what happens to us? I hug her tight. We go home, baby. We get our life back. But different, Noah added from across the room. At 12, he understood more than his sister. We can't go back to before. No, I agreed, but we can build something better. Sarah's true nature revealed itself in the weeks following the funeral. She moved quickly to take control of Miller Security Solutions, presenting herself as my grieving widow and heir. The board of directors, unaware of her true role, offered condolences and cooperation, but I had prepared for this contingency. Hidden clauses in the company bylaws required my personal approval for any ownership transfer. Sarah found herself hitting legal walls, her frustration growing. "She's getting sloppy," Marcus observed during one of our daily briefings. "Making mistakes." "Good," I replied, a grim satisfaction settling in my chest. The rope's almost ready. My patience paid off when Sarah made her first fatal error. Believing herself secure in her deception, she hosted a small gathering at a downtown hotel, a private memorial for me, with select friends and business associates. Adrian Finch attended as her date. I watched the event unfold through strategically placed cameras. Sarah laughed too freely, touched Adrian too intimately. They retired to her suite early, unaware they were being recorded. Phase 1 complete, I told Marcus. Time to let them know I'm alive. The next morning, Sarah received a package at the brownstone, now her property. Inside was a single photograph. Ethan, Noah, and Chloe, very much alive, taken the previous day. No message, no threat, just undeniable proof that the dead man walked. My burner phone rang within the hour. "Ethan?" Sarah's voice trembled, a crack in her carefully constructed facade. "Ethan, is that you?" "Hello, Sarah," I said calmly, surprised at the lack of emotion in my own voice. Her intake of breath was audible.
"How?"
"Where are you?"
"Close."
"Watching. Learning." I paused. "Nice memorial service, by the way." Adrian seems to have gotten over his grief quickly. Silence. Then, a desperate whisper. "What do you want?" "Justice," I replied. "And believe me, you're going to beg for death before I'm done." The line went dead. Chapter 5. The tangled web fear made them reckless. Within hours of my call, Sarah contacted Adrian, who reached out to the Colemans, who panicked and made calls of their own. My team intercepted everything. "They're planning to run," Brenda Rodriguez reported, trying to access the offshore accounts, which I already emptied. I smiled grimly. Tony Gallo shadowed their every move. "I want to know every detail." Sarah's world unraveled rapidly. The bank accounts she'd carefully hidden were frozen. Questions arose about the insurance claim. Creditors appeared, demanding payments she couldn't make. I applied pressure systematically. Anonymous tips to the IRS questioned the Colemans' finances. The SEC received information about Adrian's fraudulent business dealings. Each day brought new problems, new fears. I watched them scramble, observed their true characters emerge under pressure. Adrian turned on Sarah, blaming her for the botched assassination. Sarah lashed out at the Colemans for their incompetence. The family alliance fractured. "It's like watching rats fight over a sinking ship," Tony observed with satisfaction. But I wasn't satisfied with financial ruin or legal troubles. I wanted something more personal. The opportunity came when Liam Kelly, the compromised engineer, contacted Sarah in desperation. She'd been paying him to stay quiet, but now the money had dried up. Liam threatened to go to the police with everything he knew. Sarah agreed to meet him at an abandoned warehouse in South Boston, a location that meant something to me. It was where my father had taught me to fight, where I'd learned that mercy was weakness. I got there first. Liam Kelly arrived, nervous and alone, carrying a laptop with copies of all the incriminating evidence. He never saw me step from the shadows. The confrontation was brief, but educational. Liam learned the price of betrayal firsthand. When Sarah arrived, she found Liam unconscious, tied to a chair, and me waiting. "Hello, Sarah," I said, stepping into the dim light. "Let's have that talk." Her perfect composure shattered. She backed away, fumbling for her phone, but I had blocked all signals. "You can't. You're dead," she stammered, her voice a thin, reedy sound. "No, I'm very much alive, thanks to Chloe." My voice was ice, each word a chilling blade. "She heard your plans. She warned me. My 6-year-old daughter saved us all while you tried to murder your own children." Sarah's face went white. "I never meant to hurt the children. I needed freedom, money, a new life with Adrian." I circled her like a predator. "You could have divorced me. Instead, you chose murder." She stammered. "Adrian said it was the only way. He said that the Colemans would help, that you'd all be rich, that no one would suspect a thing. I nodded slowly. I know everything, Sarah. Every detail. The offshore accounts, the security breach, the gas leak. Simon here was very helpful filling in the gaps. Sarah looked at the unconscious engineer, then back to me, her eyes filled with frantic desperation. What are you going to do? Justice, I replied. But not the kind the courts offer. You want me dead? You'll wish I was. I pulled out my phone and played a recording. Sarah and Adrian planning the murder, discussing how to dispose of the bodies, laughing about the insurance money. I could send this to the police, I said. Let you rot in prison. But prison's too kind. I want you to feel what I felt when I realized my wife tried to murder our children. Sarah began to cry, but I remained unmoved. I'd seen her cry before, used tears as weapons to get her way. Tomorrow night, I continued, you'll go to the Beacon Hotel. Tell Adrian to meet you there. Tell the Colemans to come to a family meeting to discuss the crisis. The details will be in this envelope. I handed her a sealed package. Be there at 9 o'clock. And Sarah? She looked up, makeup streaked with tears. If you run, if you warn them, or if you don't show up, your families will receive something far worse than this recording. Chapter 6. The perfect storm. The Beacon Hotel's top floor was reserved for a private dinner party. 6 people sat around a gleaming table, Sarah and Adrian, Jessica and her husband Richard Coleman, and a distinguished older couple introduced as Agents Davis and Shaw, though to the others, they were the Harringtons. Each person had their own reason for attending this summons disguised as a business opportunity. Sarah came out of primal fear. Adrian, hoping to salvage his relationship with a suddenly impoverished widow. The Colemans sought any way to recover their finances. Even they didn't know why the wealthy Harringtons, with their mysterious connections to Miller Security, were there. As dessert was served, the lights dimmed. A screen descended from the ceiling. Good evening. My voice boomed through the speakers. The conspirators jumped. Before we begin, I have a short film to share. The screen lit up with crystal-clear footage. Adrian and Jessica in college planning their first scam. Sarah siphoning money from various accounts. The Colemans discussing how to fake their business failure. Every betrayal, every lie, every cold discussion of murder, all captured in perfect detail. Sarah rose to flee, but the doors had locked, sealed by my systems. Adrian cursed and pounded on the walls. The Colemans sat in stunned silence, their blue-blooded facade crumbling. I'm giving you a choice, my voice continued, echoing around the room. Option 1. I send this footage to every news station, every police department, every business associate you've ever had. Your lives, as you know them, end tonight. Jessica sobbed openly. Richard Coleman, aged 10 years before their eyes, looked like a defeated man. Adrian turned to Sarah, hatred burning in his eyes. This is your fault. Option 2, you play a game. My game, by the rules I set. The lights rose. I stepped through a door none of them had noticed, impeccably dressed, radiating cold authority. Behind me stood the Harringtons, now clearly revealed as senior FBI agents who'd been investigating the Colemans for years. What kind of game? Richard Coleman asked hoarsely. I smiled, a chilling, humorless expression. Musical chairs with a twist. I produced 6 envelopes, placing one before each person. Each envelope contains a different fate: immunity, prison time, financial ruin, or... I paused dramatically, letting the silence stretch. Special arrangements for the truly deserving. You'll take turns selecting from the remaining envelopes. One of you will emerge relatively unscathed. The others, well, you've earned what's coming. This is insane, Adrian shouted, his bravado finally cracking. You can't what? My voice was still. Dangerous. Expose your crimes? Ruin your lives like you tried to ruin mine? Watch as you destroy each other. I took a step closer, my gaze sweeping over their terrified faces. I absolutely can, and I will. For the next hour, they played. Each revelation in the envelopes turned them against each other. Jessica learned that Adrian was already planning to betray Sarah for another wealthy widow. Richard discovered his wife had stolen from their personal accounts. Adrian found evidence that Sarah had considered having him killed after my death. By the end, they were a pack of wolves, each willing to sacrifice the others to save themselves. Sarah and Jessica's sisterly bond evaporated into bitter accusations. Adrian punched Richard in a desperate attempt to steal his envelope. The Colemans wept as generations of family legacy crumbled into dust. I watched it all with a profound satisfaction. This was justice. Not the clean, simple variety of courts and prisons, but the raw truth of betrayers destroying each other. Finally, only one envelope remained. Sarah's. With shaking hands, she opened it. Inside was a single document, divorce papers, and a custody agreement granting me full rights to our children. Your immunity from prosecution requires 3 signatures, I explained. Yours, mine, and a judge's. You keep your freedom, Sarah, but you lose everything else. Your children will know exactly what you are. Your name will be dirt in the circles you once moved in. You'll live, but you'll wish you hadn't. As for the others, Adrian would face charges for fraud and conspiracy to commit murder. The Colemans would spend years fighting financial crimes allegations. Their privileged world had ended. I turned to leave, then paused. One more thing. Liam Kelly. He's already talking to the FBI. Apparently, attempted murder is a powerful motivator for cooperation. Chapter 7. The homecoming the next morning, I returned to my children at the safe house. They had watched the entire night's events on a secure video feed. At my insistence, Noah and Chloe needed to understand the depths of betrayal and the price of justice. Is it over? Chloe asked, her eyes wide. Almost, I replied, pulling them close. We have one more thing to do. We drove to Miller Security Solutions headquarters. Word had spread that Ethan Miller was alive. Employees cheered as I walked in with my children. Marcus Thorne met us at the elevators, tears in his eyes. Welcome home, boss. I addressed the assembled staff personally, thanking them for their loyalty during the crisis. I explained that those who'd betrayed me had been dealt with. Miller Security would emerge stronger. Later, in my office, I found a package on my desk. Inside was Chloe's lucky rabbit, slightly singed from the fire, and a note from Detective Elena Rodriguez. Found this in the ruins. Thought she might want it back. That evening, I took my children to dinner at their favorite restaurant. They'd grown in these weeks. Harder, wiser, but not broken. Dad, Noah said over dessert, his voice thoughtful. Are we safe now? I considered the question carefully. Safer than before. But remember what you've learned. Trust carefully. Watch constantly. And never let your guard down. Chloe hugged her rescued rabbit close. And family protects family, she added. I smiled proudly. Exactly. Chapter 8. The ripple effect. The aftermath of my revenge spread like wildfire through Boston's social circles. Sarah lived in isolation, shunned by the very society she'd craved. Her daily existence became a punishment. Watching her children thrive without her, seeing her former friends cross the street to avoid her, receiving photos of her ex-husband's success. Adrian. Finch learned about survival the hard way. Federal prison awaited, but first came the street justice. My reputation meant certain people took an interest in the man who tried to murder me. Adrian discovered that even without direct action, I could make prison a nightmare. The Colemans fared no better. The family's centuries-old businesses crumbled under investigation. Richard and Jessica's marriage dissolved in bitter lawsuits. Their children, innocent of their parents' crimes, had to rebuild their lives from nothing. Liam Kelly cooperated fully with authorities, earning a reduced sentence. But my influence extended beyond courts. The man found it impossible to get tech work again. Every door closed, every application rejected. He finally settled in a small town in Maine, living under an assumed name, jumping at shadows and checking his locks obsessively. The irony wasn't lost on him. The man who disabled my security now lived in perpetual fear of unprotected doors. But my most satisfying revenge wasn't what I did to my enemies. It was what I built in their absence. Miller Security Solutions expanded internationally. The AdMe account, impressed by my handling of my personal crisis, led to contracts across Africa. My reputation for loyalty and ruthlessness made me the most sought-after security consultant in the world. More importantly, my relationship with my children deepened. Noah applied to MIT at 16, already showing his father's aptitude for security systems. Chloe, now 8, had become the daughter I always hoped for, smart, fierce, and unforgiving of betrayal. We'd moved back to Beacon Hill, but not to the old brownstone. Too many ghosts. Instead, I built a new fortress, state-of-the-art, impenetrable. A castle for my new dynasty. Chapter 9. The final testament. 10 years after the night that almost destroyed me, I sat in my office watching my now 18-year-old daughter give her MIT valedictorian speech via video feed. Chloe had my eyes, my drive, my unwavering principles. A knock interrupted my pride. Detective Elena Rodriguez entered, older but still sharp. Thought you'd want to know? Sarah's heart gave out yesterday. Natural causes. I felt nothing. The children know. They were listed as next of kin. You want me to handle it?
No.
I'll tell them tonight. I turned back to the video. Chloe was talking about justice, about standing up to evil. My eyes burned with fierce pride. Rodriguez lingered. For what it's worth, Ethan, what you did that night, some might call it extreme. My smile was cold. I don't care what some people think. They weren't the ones who smelled gas while their family slept. They weren't the ones who heard their 6-year-old daughter whisper that her mother planned to make them orphans. The detective nodded slowly. Just wanted you to know I never doubted you made the right call. After Rodriguez left, I opened my desk drawer and pulled out my personal journal. I'd kept it since that night, documenting everything, not for the courts or history, but for my children. I wrote to Noah and Chloe. When you read this, I'll be gone. But know this truth. I regret nothing. Every action I took after that night was necessary. Your mother and those who betrayed us learned that mercy is earned, not given. You've become everything I hoped for. Strong, uncompromising, loyal to those who deserve it. You understand that justice isn't always legal, but it's always necessary. Remember, family protects family always. And to those who cross us, give them no quarter, show them no mercy. Let them serve as reminders that betrayal has a price. Forever yours, Dad. That evening, I gathered my family in our new home. Noah was home from college for the weekend. Chloe would join him at MIT after her graduation. I have news, I announced. Sarah passed away yesterday. The silence stretched. Then Chloe asked, should we feel something? I looked at my children, strong, whole, unbroken by their mother's betrayal. Only relief, I replied. Relief that she can never hurt us again. Noah raised his glass. To family, to justice, Chloe added. To those who earned our trust, I finished. And to those who didn't, may they rot in whatever hell they found. We drank. 3 warriors who'd survived betrayal and emerged stronger. Outside, Boston glittered in the night, unaware that in a fortress on Beacon Hill, the Miller family had just written the final chapter of their testament. A testament written in blood, sealed in vengeance, and passed down as legacy. Never forgive, never forget, and never let betrayal go unpunished. The dead man had walked, and justice had been served. Epilogue. The price of betrayal. 23 years after Sarah's death, Chloe Miller Campbell stood before her father's grave in Mount Auburn Cemetery. The morning Boston air was crisp, carrying the scent of early spring blossoms. At 42, she was the spitting image of me, same intense green eyes, same uncompromising stance. Her twin sons, just 6 years old, hugged her legs, eerily reminiscent of her own childhood. Tell us the story again, Mama, asked Nathan, the older twin by 3 minutes. About how Grandpa made the bad people pay? Added Noah. Chloe smiled, running a hand through Nathan's hair. Later, my loves. First, we pay our respects. She placed fresh flowers on my grave. I'd lived to 92, sharp until the very end, watching over my growing dynasty of Millers. When the heart attack finally claimed me, Chloe had been holding my hand, promising to continue my legacy. "Miss you, Dad," she whispered. "You'd be proud." The sound of approaching footsteps made her turn. Noah, now a distinguished 68, strode down the path. Her brother had aged gracefully, his silver hair and expensive suit speaking to his success. Beside him walked his daughter, Samantha, and her teenage son, the next generation of Millers. "You're early," Noah said, embracing his sister. The boys wanted to hear the story. Noah knelt beside his nephews. "Did you know your grandpa Ethan was the greatest man who ever lived? Because he made the bad people sorry?" asked young Noah. "Exactly. And he taught us that family comes first always." As the family gathered around my grave, Chloe's mind drifted to the others who'd played parts in our tale. Their fates had become Miller family legend. Cautionary tales passed down to each new generation. Adrian. Choice to their own children. A knock interrupted her thoughts. Marcus Thorne entered, now 47 and head of the Private Investigation Division. "Chloe, we have a situation." She raised an eyebrow. "Betrayal. Embezzlement. One of our senior executives. Moving money offshore, just like Sarah," Chloe finished, slipping naturally into command mode. "Gather the team. Full surveillance. I want everything. Financials, communications, relationships. Find the weak points." Marcus nodded. "Like your father always said, the rope is strongest when they hang themselves." Chloe finished, channeling my cold satisfaction. "And Marcus, make sure they understand this isn't just business. This is personal." Over dinner, the family discussed the situation. Noah offered legal strategies. Samantha suggested psychological pressure points. Even the grandchildren, those old enough to understand, contributed ideas. The Miller family worked like a well-oiled machine, each member playing their part. Later, as Chloe tucked her sons into bed, Nathan looked up at her. "Mama, when someone betrays family, what do we do?" "We remember Grandpa Ethan," she answered, smoothing his hair. "We are patient. We gather information. And we make them pay in ways they never imagine." Young Noah snuggled against her. "Like the story?" "Exactly like the story. Now sleep, my little warriors. Tomorrow you'll learn more about justice." Alone in her study, Chloe opened her laptop and began planning. The new betrayal would be handled swiftly and completely. The executive, a man named David Spencer, would learn what generations before him had learned. The Miller family never forgave, never forgot, and never failed to collect their debts. She drafted messages to her team, each instruction precise and merciless. The Ice Queen was in full effect. As she worked, she remembered my final words. "They may forget who I was, but they'll never forget what I did." A smile, cruel and determined, touched Chloe's lips. She prepared to add another chapter to the Miller legacy. The dead man's shadow still walked, guiding his descendants in the sacred art of vengeance. 23 years had passed since my death, but my truth remained constant. Loyalty was rewarded, betrayal was destroyed, and family came first, always. In Boston's financial district, David Spencer slept peacefully, unaware that morning would bring the first whispers of his destruction. Across the city, Marcus Thorne's team began their surveillance. At the federal courthouse, Noah reviewed legal strategies. At Miller Security Headquarters, emergency protocols activated. The machine I built was flawless, unstoppable, eternal. And at its heart still beat the fierce determination of a man who'd survived his death and taught his children that justice, real justice, acknowledged no limits and no mercy. The dead man continued to walk through his children, his grandchildren, and all who bore the Miller name. My testament lived on, carved in the failures of those who learned too late that betrayal carried a price beyond comprehension. And somewhere in the space between dreams and waking, Ethan Miller smiled. The legacy continues. In Boston's financial district, David Spencer slept peacefully, unaware that morning would bring the first whispers of his destruction. Across the city, Marcus Thorne's team began their surveillance. At the federal courthouse, Noah reviewed legal strategies. At Miller Security Headquarters, emergency protocols activated. The machine I built was flawless, unstoppable, eternal. And at its heart still beat the fierce determination of a man who'd survived his death and taught his children that justice, real justice, acknowledged no limits and no mercy. The dead man continued to walk through his children, his grandchildren, and all who bore the Miller name. My testament lived on, carved in the failures of those who learned too late that betrayal carried a price beyond comprehension. And somewhere in the space between dreams and waking, Ethan Miller smiled. My smile was not one of simple contentment, but of profound satisfaction, a recognition of my children's unwavering commitment to the principles I had etched into their very souls. When Chloe had called to tell me about David Spencer, the senior executive caught siphoning company funds, establishing offshore accounts, building a parallel life of deceit, there was no hesitation in her voice, no moral wavering. Just a cold, analytical resolve that would have made any predator think twice. My ice queen, indeed. The surveillance began the moment the call ended. Marcus Thorne, now a seasoned veteran of Miller Security, had deployed his best. The new generation of Tony Fingers Gallo's agency, run by his sharp-witted granddaughter, Lisa Gallo, shadowed Spencer with a precision that bordered on art. They collected everything: his daily routine, his secret rendezvous, his financial transactions, his vulnerabilities. They built a dossier so comprehensive it would have made the FBI blush. He was a creature of habit, this Spencer, prone to predictable vices. A weekly poker game at an exclusive, illicit club. An affair with his assistant. A growing addiction to high-stakes gambling. Each thread, meticulously documented, was woven into a tapestry of his undoing. Noah, my son, worked like a silent assassin in the legal arena. He began constructing the legal framework for Spencer's demise. Lawsuits, injunctions, regulatory investigations, each a carefully placed minefield designed to detonate at the precise moment. He moved with a quiet intensity, his mind a labyrinth of legal precedents and loopholes, all bent to the singular purpose of absolute destruction. His father's ruthlessness, tempered by Harvard law, made him a force to be reckoned with. He wasn't interested in a mere conviction. He wanted to dismantle Spencer's life piece by agonizing piece, leaving him with nothing but the echo of his own betrayal. Chloe, however, was the architect of the personal ruin. She understood that financial and legal destruction were merely tools. The true art of vengeance lay in crushing the spirit, in making the betrayer question every decision, every comfort, every perceived victory. She spent days sifting through Spencer's personal life, looking for not just weaknesses, but levers. She found them in his seemingly perfect family, a wife, Susan, who believed him to be a devoted husband, and 2 children, a son heading to college, a daughter just starting high school. These were the foundations of his projected stability, the very things he was betraying with every offshore deposit. He's sending his son to Stanford next year, Chloe noted during one of their secure video briefings, her eyes fixed on Spencer's digital footprint. Full tuition, paid from an untraceable trust fund. But the school knows nothing about the source of those funds. Not yet. That's Noah's cue, Marcus grunted, his face grim. A whisper to the admissions office, a subtle query about potential financial improprieties. Not just a whisper, Marcus. Noah interjected, his voice calm, measured. A full-blown inquiry. The kind that makes a university question every aspect of a student's application, especially when it comes to the integrity of the family's wealth. It will cause delays, questions, perhaps even a revocation of admission. I watched them, my heart swelling with a fierce pride. They weren't just executing my blueprint. They were refining it, adding their own indelible marks of ingenuity and ruthlessness. The trap was set for a Monday morning. Spencer walked into his gleaming office at Miller Security, oblivious. His coffee was cold. His usual parking spot was taken. Small, innocuous irritations that chipped away at the veneer of his control. He settled into his desk, only to find his computer locked, displaying a single, stark message. Your security has been compromised. Seek IT support. A routine IT ticket, he assumed. But there was nothing routine about what followed. His phone rang. It was his bank. All his personal and business accounts were frozen. An anonymous tip had triggered a multi-agency investigation. Then his wife called, hysterical. Stanford had called, raising serious questions about their son's admission, hinting at a fraudulent financial declaration. The foundation of his perfect world was beginning to crumble. He tried to contact his mistress. Her phone was disconnected. He rushed home, only to find his wife, Susan, packing a suitcase, her face contorted in a mixture of rage and devastation. On the coffee table lay printouts of his offshore accounts, his gambling debts, and damning photographs from Lisa Gallo's surveillance. Spencer with his assistant, Spencer at the poker tables. The anonymous package had arrived just an hour before him. "You disgust me," Susan spat, her voice thick with pain and betrayal. "I don't know who you are, but you're not the man I married." She took the children and left, shattering the carefully constructed facade of his family life. Broken and bewildered, Spencer finally received the summons. An unmarked black sedan pulled up to his now empty brownstone. Two impeccably dressed men, Miller Securities' top operatives, offered him a ride to an undisclosed location. He went willingly, his will utterly broken. The location was a secluded corporate retreat property owned by Miller Security. Inside, in a stark, minimalist conference room, sat Chloe and Noah. Marcus stood behind them, a silent, imposing figure. "David Spencer," Chloe began, her voice calm, devoid of emotion. "It seems you've had a rather eventful day." Spencer merely stared at them, his face pale and haggard, his eyes hollow. He looked a decade older than he had that morning. Noah slid a binder across the table. "This contains a full accounting of your embezzlement, the offshore accounts, the tax fraud, the manipulation of company financials, and a detailed outline of the legal and criminal charges awaiting you. We also have ample evidence of your various personal indiscretions, which will, no doubt, make for riveting courtroom drama." Chloe leaned forward, her voice dropping to a near whisper that somehow resonated with chilling power. "You betrayed a trust, Mr. Spencer. Not just the company's, but ours. My father built this company on loyalty. He taught us that betrayal carries a price you are now fully prepared to pay." Spencer finally found his voice, a croaking whisper. "What do you want?"
Money?
I can pay it back." Chloe's lips curled into a faint, humorless smile. "Money is irrelevant, David. You can't put a price on trust. We're offering you a choice. Option 1, we proceed. Every piece of evidence we've meticulously gathered will be released to the authorities, the press, and every single person you've ever sought to impress. Your name will be synonymous with greed, fraud, and a spectacular fall from grace. Your career will be over. Your family, well, your wife and children already know the truth. They'll live with the shame of your actions for the rest of their lives. You'll go to prison, where your privileged background will make you a prime target, and the media will ensure you're never forgotten." Noah slid a second document across the table. "Option 2, you sign this. It's a full confession, a resignation from Miller Security, and an agreement to forfeit all assets acquired through illicit means. In return, we will ensure that the criminal charges are reduced to financial misdemeanors, with no prison time, only house arrest, and a lifetime ban from any executive position in the financial sector. The details of your personal life remain private. Your children will still have to live with your choices, but without the added burden of national headlines and criminal proceedings." Spencer looked at the two documents, then at Chloe, her intense green eyes mirroring my own. He saw no mercy there, only an unwavering, cold calculation. He saw the face of justice Miller style. He crumpled. "Why?" he managed, tears finally streaming down his face. "Why go through all this?" "Because we keep our promises, David," Chloe replied, her voice cutting through his despair. "My father promised that betrayal has a price. And we, his children, ensure that promise is always kept. Now, which option will it be?" It took him an hour to sign. By the time he left, he was a hollowed-out shell of a man, his life utterly dismantled, not by a single cataclysmic event, but by a precise, deliberate surgical strike. He chose house arrest and financial ruin over total public humiliation and a long prison sentence. It was a choice born of terror, a desperate grasp at the sliver of dignity Chloe had allowed him. The Spencer affair, as it came to be known within Miller Security, was a testament to the seamless execution of the family's legacy. It solidified Noah's reputation as a legal strategist of unparalleled ruthlessness and Chloe's as the embodiment of relentless justice. They understood that the dead man still walked, not as a haunting spirit, but as an enduring principle. But the world was always changing, and new challenges arose, requiring the Miller legacy to evolve. The family's influence grew exponentially, and with it, new enemies emerged, often subtle, insidious, and operating in the shadows of global finance and cyber warfare. The kind of enemies that made Sarah and Adrian seem like petty criminals. One such challenge materialized in the form of Cerberus, a highly sophisticated global cybercriminal organization. They specialized in industrial espionage, ransomware attacks on critical infrastructure, and manipulating stock markets for profit, leaving behind a trail of financial devastation and untraceable digital ghosts. Cerberus had begun to target Miller Securities clients, not for ransom, but to undermine their trust in the firm's impenetrable reputation. It was a direct challenge, a gauntlet thrown at the feet of the Miller dynasty. Chloe, now formally heading the family's strategic initiatives alongside Noah, took this personally. Her FBI background, combined with her innate understanding of ruthless engagement, made her the perfect leader for this new battle. "They're not just stealing data, Noah," she explained during a late-night session in my old study, now hers. The room had been modernized, but the scent of old leather and determination still clung to the air. "They're attempting to weaponize information, to create chaos. They want to prove Miller Security isn't invincible. They want to break the very foundation of loyalty we've built." Noah, ever the strategist, leaned back in his chair, his gaze fixed on the complex network diagrams projected onto the wall. "Their methods are unique. Untraceable origins, multi-layered proxies, using AI to constantly shift their attack vectors. They're good. But not good enough," Chloe countered, her eyes gleaming with a familiar intensity. "We fight fire with fire. We hit them where it hurts most, their anonymity, their infrastructure, and their illicit profits." This was a different kind of war than the one I had waged against Sarah. There was no personal betrayal to avenge, no familiar face to confront. This was a battle of wits, technology, and sheer force of will against a faceless enemy. But the principles remained the same: identify the enemy, understand their weaknesses, and dismantle them completely. Chloe activated a new specialized division within Miller Security, one that combined the best of their cybersecurity experts, former intelligence operatives, and the street-smart savvy of Lisa Gallo's investigators. They called themselves the Hounds, a silent, relentless force. The initial phase was pure intelligence gathering. The Hounds tracked digital breadcrumbs across the dark web, infiltrated online forums, and set up honeypots designed to lure Cerberus operatives. It was a painstaking, methodical process, requiring patience and extreme precision. During this time, Chloe would often visit my grave, not to mourn, but to reflect. "Dad," she'd murmur, the wind carrying her voice through the quiet cemetery. "They're invisible. How do you fight a ghost?" I knew the answer, of course. You make the ghost reveal itself. You exploit its need to boast, its arrogance, its moments of vulnerability. You set a trap that even an invisible enemy can't avoid. And that's precisely what Chloe did. Leveraging Noah's legal mind, they orchestrated a massive, public disinformation campaign. Miller Security announced a groundbreaking new encryption protocol, seemingly impervious to known cyber attacks, and hinted at a major breakthrough in tracing untraceable digital currencies. It was bait pure and simple. An irresistible challenge to Cerberus's pride and technical prowess. Cerberus took the bait. They launched a series of probing attacks, then a full-scale assault, not on a client, but directly on Miller Security's own systems, aiming to steal the new protocol and expose it as a hoax. This was their mistake. They had believed their own legend, their own invisibility. As Cerberus's lead operatives, believing themselves secure, dove deep into Miller Security's digital defenses, the hounds were waiting. The new protocol was a carefully constructed digital web, a series of honeypots and backdoors designed not to protect, but to capture. They didn't just trace the attacks. They mapped the entire Cerberus infrastructure, identifying key servers, digital wallets, and most crucially, the physical locations of their central command and several of their key operatives. Noah, with his network of federal judges and prosecutors, worked in tandem. As Chloe's team pinpointed Cerberus's financial hubs, a complex web of cryptocurrencies and offshore accounts, Noah secured court orders, international warrants, and asset freezes. When Cerberus realized they were trapped, their digital operations collapsing around them, they tried to cut their losses, to withdraw their profits. But Noah's legal net was already in place. Their digital fortunes, amassed through years of illicit activity, vanished, transferred into an account under the control of the U.S. Treasury, never to be seen by Cerberus again. The physical takedown was swift and coordinated. Thanks to the precise intelligence gathered, law enforcement agencies across multiple countries moved simultaneously. Key Cerberus leaders, who had believed themselves untouchable in their secure bunkers, found their doors breached, their lives exposed. The organization crumbled, its myth of invisibility shattered. No single face emerged as a primary target, but the collective destruction was absolute. This was a victory for Miller Security, but more importantly, for the legacy. It showed that my children didn't just react to betrayal, they proactively sought to dismantle threats to their empire and their values. They had adapted my philosophy to the modern world, making it more potent, more far-reaching. Years passed. The Miller dynasty continued to flourish. Noah's twins, now young adults, pursued careers in law and technology, showing early signs of the same sharp intellect and unwavering resolve that characterized their family. Samantha, Noah's daughter, had become a brilliant legal mind in her own right, working alongside her father, her ethical compass calibrated by the deep-seated Miller Code. Family protects family, and betrayal is met with unyielding justice. Chloe's sons, Nathan and young Noah, grew into formidable young men. Nathan, with his fire and strategic mind, was already making waves in the world of venture capital, but always with an eye toward protecting the family's diverse interests. Young Noah, calmer and more introspective, was a budding technologist, his brilliance focused on cutting-edge security systems, the kind that would have made me grin with paternal pride. The family continued its annual pilgrimage to Mount Auburn Cemetery. My grave became a place of ritual, a testament to the enduring principles that bound them. It wasn't about mourning, it was about reaffirming their commitment to the legacy. One crisp autumn morning, Chloe and Noah stood before my headstone, the leaves rustling around them like whispers from the past. Nathan and young Noah, now in their early 20s, stood behind them, solemn and attentive. Grandpa Ethan taught us that justice isn't always found in courtrooms, Nathan said, his voice deep and thoughtful. Sometimes, it's about making sure the betrayer understands the true cost of their actions, personally and fundamentally. And that cost, young Noah added, is everything they hold dear. Chloe looked at her sons, then at her brother. He taught us to never compromise on loyalty and to never falter in the face of treachery. He lived that truth, and we carry it forward. Noah nodded slowly. Our father's greatest strength wasn't just his ability to protect, but his unwavering will to punish. He ensured that no one who crossed us would ever forget it. The memory of David Spencer, Adrian Finch, Sarah, and the Colemans, all reduced to cautionary tales, was a living lesson. They were reminders of the long shadow my choices cast, a shadow that stretched across generations, ensuring the Miller name remained synonymous with both unwavering protection and absolute retribution. Later that day, at the family compound, a discussion unfolded that exemplified the Miller legacy in its full maturity. A long-standing business partner, a man named Robert Thorne, no relation to Marcus, ironically, had begun to subtly undermine a complex international deal, attempting to leverage Miller Securities' intelligence for his own illicit gains. It wasn't a betrayal of the magnitude of Sarah's, but it was a breach of trust, a direct challenge to the very fabric of their operations. Chloe sat at the head of the polished oak table, a map of the world spread before them. Robert Thorne believes he can outmaneuver us. He thinks his connections run deeper, his deception more artful. Noah outlined the legal maneuvers they could employ. We can corner him, freeze his assets, dismantle his shell corporations. It would be devastating financially. But Nathan, my grandson, spoke up, his eyes bright with an inherited fire. Grandpa Ethan always said, "Don't just cut off the head, poison the well." Thorne prides himself on his reputation, his social standing, his carefully cultivated image as a philanthropist. Young Noah, the tech expert, chimed in. We've been monitoring his digital footprint. He has a weakness for offshore charities that are, shall we say, less than transparent, and a predilection for certain exotic collectibles, the kind that might raise flags with Interpol. Chloe smiled, a chilling echo of my own. Excellent. We won't just ruin his finances. We'll systematically shred his public persona. We'll make sure his philanthropy is exposed as a front, his collectibles as illicit contraband. We'll turn his carefully constructed world into a house of cards, then blow it down. This was the culmination of my life's work, the ultimate resolution I had sought. My children, and now my grandchildren, understood. They had embraced the full weight of the Miller name, not as a burden, but as a mantle of power and responsibility. They had learned that true justice was not just about righting wrongs, but about ensuring that those who dared to betray never had the chance to do so again. The meeting continued, each family member contributing, a well-oiled machine of intelligence, law, and ruthless execution. They moved with a unified purpose, an unshakable resolve. There was no doubt, no hesitation. The legacy I had forged in the crucible of my own near-death was not merely being maintained. It was being honed, perfected, and passed down, stronger with each generation. And somewhere, in the space between dreams and waking, Ethan Miller watched. My family had not just survived, they had transcended. They were the embodiment of my final testament, living proof that loyalty was rewarded, betrayal was destroyed, and family came first, always. The dead man continued to walk, not through the echoes of memory, but through the vibrant, unyielding actions of his descendants, whose justice acknowledged no limits and showed no mercy to those who dared to cross them. The legacy was eternal. If you've listened to this story and felt the cold precision of Ethan Miller's legacy, what emotions does it stir within you? Does this unyielding form of justice resonate, or do you find it too extreme? Share your thoughts below. I'm always fascinated by different perspectives on what true justice means.